Hey guys, it's your girl. I am back. This is Tashira, the founder of Female Football Frenzy and your host of F3 TV. And listen, we promised you that we would give you the top five NFL players of the 1990s. And if you were part of our live show this morning, you know that we said that we would post this information on our blog, which is at femalefootballfrenzy.wordpress.com. So blogosphere, here we have it, the top five players of the NFL during the 1990s, starting with number five, Mr. Primetime himself, Deion Sanders. He is the top rated defensive player in the NFL. He has returned 8 touchdowns in the decade of the 90s, which made him a threat from the Cowboys to the 49ers. Deion Sanders was and still is prime time. He is most recently and can most recently be seen as a part of the OWN network, Oprah Winfrey's network, showing his fatherhood skills off the field as he fathers and mentors many, many kids. So number five spot, primetime Deion Sanders. Number four, the gunslinger himself, the QBs of QPs, none other than Mr. Brett Favre. Yes, Brett Favre played well into his career beyond his 30s into his 40s, and he was a threat until the day he retired again and again and again, even though we weren't sure when that would be. He had fewer games during his 10-year span in question, which absolutely put him in position to beat out prime time at the fifth spot. So Gunslinger, we salute you and your arm for all that you contributed to the NFL throughout the 90s and into the 2000s. Number three, one of my all-time favorites, Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice is from Mississippi. He came from a very small school and is known to prepare himself to be the wide receiver that he is by catching bricks. Yes, he caught bricks with those hands. He caught actual like bricks like you build a building with. So of course catching some pigskin was never a problem and didn't present an issue for him. All right, so Jerry Rice, number three, he in the 1980s, and 1990s. Bear in mind, he started off with 100 catches in 1990 and surpassed more times during the decade of the 90s. He surpassed his own record. In 95, he set an NFL record with 1,848 receiving yards, and he added another Super Bowl ring, which is pretty darn good. All right, so shout out to Jerry Rice at number three. Number two, one of the best running backs to do it during a time when his team was called America's team, and that is none other than Emmitt Smith of the Dallas Cowboys, an exceptional running back, quality, integral. He ran the ball, and I love the 90s decade for football. That is when players played. They weren't concerned about contracts. They weren't so commercialized. They didn't decide in their minds that they wouldn't play if they weren't making a certain amount of money, and Emmitt Smith certainly displayed that level of play. In one 5-year span, Smith won 4 rushing titles, 3 Super Bowls, and 1 NFL MVP award, and 1 Super Bowl MVP award. Not bad, Emmett. Not bad. Salute you. Number one. Now, I just watched a story about this young man, and yes, I'll still call him a young man, especially at the time that he retired from the league. I just watched his story not too long ago, and I was very much touched by it and the support and what some would call non-traditional cheerleading squad he had in his corner, in that of his father. Barry Sanders takes the number one spot for the all-time player of the 1990s, and he is without a question in the running to be the top running back of all time. And that question goes up in the air amongst many players that precede my date of birth, but certainly Barry Sanders is a quality player. He seemed to be such a friendly guy, very humble, and just was really after playing the game. And it was interesting because he didn't come into the league to do what he did, but the Detroit Lions, he really certainly kept them in conversation simply because of his play. Had he not been part of the Lions, I don't even know if they would have been involved in any NFL talk at the time. They were a terrible team, and unfortunately, he didn't have a strong base around him to support the offense that he contributed to, and he just unfortunately never won a Super Bowl game, Super Bowl championship, I think he got into the playoffs once, maybe twice during his career, and he just decided that it was time to go. And a lot of people speculated as to why. I, for one, did. I was of the belief that the Detroit Lions were selfish enough not to want to let him play for another team. And so they decided if he didn't want to play for the Detroit Lions, then he wouldn't play anywhere. And whether that be true or not, I commend and celebrate the ladies of Female Football Frenzy, celebrate Barry Sanders for taking his life and future and career into his own hands and deciding that he was had enough of the game. And, people said he left at the height of his career. He certainly did. But the upside of that is that he left at a time when things were going well as it relates to a career. A lot of times people stay around for so very long and they get into a pit and their personal life may start to interfere with their professional life, or their ratings start to come down, or their numbers aren't, they're not producing. And so, the talk about it is, what he did when he left versus the things that a player contributed over the span of his career. All right. So that is the top 5. We promised you we would share. Primetime was at number 5. Deion Sanders, one of the top defensive players in the league. Number 4 came with Brett Favre. Number 3, Jerry Rice. Number 2, Emmitt Smith. And number 1, Barry Sanders. All right. So that is the top 5 NFL players of the NFL of the 1990s. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Frenzy03. We're on Instagram at Female Football Frenzy. And tune in to F3 TV, the virtual lounge, every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Tashara Ayers, your host and creator, signing off until next time. Enjoy your weekend, folks. And remember to stay fabulous.